The cold storage. Echo. The cold storage room at Marrow Creek is a place of perfect symmetry and absolute stillness. I've worked here for nearly 3 decades, and I've always found a strange kind of peace in the rows of stainless steel drawers. It was a Friday night, shortly after 2 a.m., and the building was humming with that low, heavy vibration that only old morgues seem to possess. I was logging a new arrival, a man found in the woods. No ID, no history, just a body reclaimed by the frost. As I slid his tray into the unit, I heard a sound that didn't belong in a room made of metal and ice. It was a soft, rhythmic thumping coming from the very back of the unit. Thump, thump, thump. I stopped, my hand still on the handle of the drawer, but the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, vibrating through the steel until I could feel the pulse in my own fingertips. When I reached the bottom row, I found drawer B12 unbolted. It had been empty for months due to a broken latch. I gripped the handle to slide it shut, but something from the inside gripped back, pulling the drawer open with a violent jerk. As the tray slid out, I didn't see a body, but I saw a wet, fresh trail of barefoot prints leading from the back of the drawer, stopping right at my feet. If the drawer was empty and locked from the outside, who or what had just walked out? My breath caught in my throat, coming out in a ragged, visible puff of white mist. The prints were small, a child's prints, and they were steaming, as if the person who made them was still radiating heat. I backed away, my eyes darting to the corners of the room where the shadows gathered thick and heavy. There was no one there. The security cameras in the hallway showed no movement, and the heavy insulated door to the storage room was still bolted from the inside. I forced myself to look back at the drawer. The wet prints were already beginning to crystallize into frost in the sub-zero air. I reached out, a trembling hand, and touched the metal tray. It was scorching hot, not just warm, but searing, as if the steel had been sitting in an oven rather than a refrigerator. I slammed the drawer shut and bolted it, the sound of the metal teeth engaging, echoing like a gunshot through the silent building. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the prep room with every light turned on, watching the door to the cold storage. In the morning, I called the technician to fix the latch on B12 finally. When he pulled the tray out to inspect the tracks, he turned to me, his face pale and drawn. "When was the last time you used this unit?" he asked, his voice shaking. "It's been empty for months," I replied. He pointed to the very back of the internal wall of the drawer. Scratched into the stainless steel from the inside were hundreds of tiny, frantic marks. They weren't random scratches. They were tally marks, thousands of them, organized in neat rows of 5, covering every inch of the back panel. Checked the records for the building later that day, before Marrow Creek was a mortuary. It was a private residence that had burned to the ground in the late 1800s. A young boy had been trapped in the cellar, the only part of the house that hadn't been consumed by the flames. They found him days later, cold and alone, waiting for a door that would never open. The realization sat heavy in my stomach, like lead. The tally marks, they weren't just counting days. They were counting every person who had ever been put into the drawers near him. He wasn't trying to get out. He was trying to see who had come to join him in the dark. I still work at Marrow Creek, and I still walk past B12 every night. But I never leave it unbolted. I've noticed that on the nights when we have a full house, when every drawer is occupied, the thumping stops. It's only when the room is nearly empty that the shuffling begins again. Sometimes, when the room is at its quietest and the air is still, I place my hand against the cold steel of the door. I don't do it to check the lock anymore. I do it because, for just a second, the metal feels warm against my palm. And I want him to know that this time, someone is finally on the other side, listening. The dead aren't always silent. Sometimes they're just waiting for the right kind of company.